My fiancée chose her former husband over me for her parents' gathering, even though I was going to gift them a car, so I simply said okay and left. Days later, she came begging for forgiveness, but I'd already found an even hotter girlfriend. My name is Tyler, and I'm 29 years old. This story happened during Christmas 2023, and my best friend insisted it would be perfect material for the internet. So here we are, I guess. The short version is that my girlfriend dumped me just 3 days before Christmas, telling me she was bringing her ex instead of me to family dinner. But honestly, that's not even the worst part of this whole mess. Let me tell you what really went down. I work in operations coordination for a mid-sized company here in North Carolina. I've been living in the same city since college, and honestly, why would I leave when I've got a decent job and my own place? I also managed to buy a decent truck that's actually paid off, which feels like a real accomplishment these days. It's not the most exciting existence in the world, but I'm stable and comfortable, and that used to mean something to people. The F-150 was my first real adult purchase, and I'm still proud of that decision. I bought it used from some farmer who had babied that truck like it was his firstborn child. The thing had only 45,000 miles on it and came with a spotless maintenance record that read like a love letter. I spent my first weekend after buying it installing a bed cover and upgrading the sound system, because the stock speakers sounded like they were trying to communicate from underwater. After going through a string of relationships that crashed and burned spectacularly, I had basically given up on dating altogether. Apparently, being too serious is somehow worse than being a man-child who can't hold down a job or remember your birthday. I had started focusing on work, hitting the gym regularly, and restoring this 1985 Mustang I had bought off Craigslist from some guy who clearly had no idea what he was selling. Then my buddy Kevin threw this barbecue during the summer of 2022, and that's where I met Nicole. Looking back now, I should have known better, but hindsight is always perfect, isn't it? Nicole was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. She worked as an art teacher at the local elementary school, and she had this infectious laugh that could literally stop traffic when she really got going. She wore sundresses that actually fit properly instead of the ill-fitting clothes that seemed to be trendy with other women my age. We clicked immediately at that barbecue, talking for hours about everything and nothing. What really drew me to her was that she seemed genuinely attracted to the fact that I had my life together. She thought it was impressive that I owned furniture that wasn't from IKEA and could plan a date that didn't involve splitting an appetizer at Chili's while hoping the bill wouldn't break the bank. For once in my dating life, I had found someone who actually appreciated the whole responsible adult thing instead of calling it boring or suffocating. Dating Nicole felt completely different from my previous relationships right from the start. We weren't just hanging out and seeing where things went. We were talking about real future stuff that actually mattered. She mentioned wanting to meet my extended family during casual conversations, asked about when my lease was up for renewal, and even joked about me needing a bigger place for when we eventually moved in together. These weren't casual comments. They felt like genuine relationship planning. She even got excited about the Mustang project, which absolutely shocked me. Most girls I had dated would roll their eyes whenever I started talking about cars or would change the subject when I got enthusiastic about mechanical work. But Nicole would actually bring me coffee while I worked in the garage, ask intelligent questions about what I was doing, and seem genuinely interested in learning about the restoration process. She even helped me sand the rust spots off the quarter panels one weekend, wearing these adorable overalls she had borrowed from her mom and getting her hands dirty without a single complaint. Her parents absolutely loved me from the very first time we met, which was a completely new experience for me. Her dad, Frank, is this retired firefighter with that old-school mentality who taught me how to properly season a cast-iron pan and let me help him rebuild his 1978 Corvette engine. We would spend entire Sunday afternoons working in his garage, drinking Budweiser and talking about everything from football to power tools to life philosophy. The man genuinely became like a father figure to me, filling a role I hadn't even realized was missing from my life. Frank's garage was basically automotive heaven on earth. The place was organized like a surgical suite, with every single tool labeled and hung in its proper place according to some system he had perfected over decades. The guy had actually installed a professional lift so he could work underneath cars properly, and his compressor setup could power pneumatic tools all day long without missing a beat. He had inherited most of his father's tools from the 1950s. These heavy American-made pieces that would probably survive a nuclear war and still work perfectly. Frank spent countless hours teaching me to rebuild carburetors and adjust valves with precision, all while sharing incredible stories about fighting fires and raising kids in a different era. Her mom, Linda, treated me like I was the son she never had, which was both touching and overwhelming in the best possible way. She was constantly sending me home with containers of leftovers after every visit, texting me links to articles she thought I would find interesting, and asking for my opinion on everything from what color to paint the guest room to which lawnmower Frank should buy next. When Nicole and I would visit for dinner, Linda would literally shoo her own daughter away so she could show me her elaborate tomato garden or spend an hour asking detailed questions about my job and future plans. Linda had this massive vegetable garden that she treated like some kind of scientific experiment. She had row after row of perfectly organized plants, complete with detailed charts tracking growth rates, harvest dates, and soil conditions. She would quiz me about soil pH levels and irrigation systems like I was studying for finals, clearly enjoying having someone who appreciated the planning and organization that went into successful gardening. She started packing me enough food to take home for several meals, and even began teaching me her canning techniques so I could preserve vegetables for the winter months. She even let me help redesign her greenhouse layout using my coordination skills from work, which made her absolutely thrilled. Frank and Linda would constantly tell Nicole how incredibly lucky she was to have found me. They would go on and on about how I was one of the good ones, and how rare it was to find a young man who had his priorities straight. Frank would drop not-so-subtle hints about marriage during our garage sessions, and Linda was always making comments about how their future grandchildren would be so well taken care of with someone like me in the family. I genuinely loved these people, and felt like I had found the family I'd always wanted, but never knew I was missing. By October 2023, I was completely ready to propose to Nicole. I had an $8,200 engagement ring hidden in my sock drawer, a ring I had spent months researching and saving for because I wanted it to be absolutely perfect. My plan was to propose during Christmas dinner at their house, right during dessert with both families present to witness the moment. Then we would celebrate together as one big, happy family. I had the entire evening mapped out perfectly in my mind, down to the smallest details. Come November, I decided to go full Christmas movie mode with my planning. My family had always gone all out for holidays, so it felt completely natural to start preparing early. Plus, this was going to be our first Christmas as a serious couple heading toward engagement, so I knew I had to make it count in every possible way. I started coordinating everyone's schedules in early November to make sure there wouldn't be any conflicts. I made dinner reservations at this upscale steakhouse called the Mason Jar that Nicole had mentioned wanting to try after seeing it featured on some food blogger's Instagram account. I even bought a navy sweater because she had casually mentioned once that I looked particularly good in that color. I planned out the precise timing for gift exchanges so nothing would feel rushed or awkward and everyone would have their moment to shine. The Mason Jar was this trendy place that Nicole had been dropping hints about for months after discovering it online. I made reservations for 7:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve, the prime time slot that required me to call 4 separate times before they finally had an opening. I specifically asked for their best table with a view of the city lights and told them it was for a very special occasion, hoping they would make the evening extra memorable. Then I went into full detective mode for the Christmas gifts, because I wanted each one to be absolutely perfect. During Thanksgiving dinner, Linda had mentioned her grandmother's china pattern exactly once, just in passing, talking about how she wished she could find more pieces to complete the set that had been broken over the years. That single comment sent me on a 3-week mission, hitting up antique shops across 3 different counties until I finally tracked down 5 matching pieces that were in pristine condition. Frank had casually mentioned this book about firefighting history during one of our dinner conversations. Just briefly, while telling a story about his early days on the force. I spent another full week hunting down a first edition copy online, bidding on multiple auctions until I finally secured one that was in excellent condition and came with the original dust jacket. And for Nicole, I had been saving money for months to get her this professional art supply set she kept bookmarking on various websites, but would never buy for herself because of the cost. It was the Prismacolor Premier set, with something like 250 different colored pencils and brushes, nearly $1,200 total. But I knew that watching her eyes light up when she opened it would have made every penny worthwhile, because supporting her art had always been important to me. I even had backup plans for everything that could possibly go wrong. What if it snowed heavily and we couldn't drive safely to her parents' house? What if the restaurant somehow lost our reservation despite my multiple confirmations? What if her family's schedule changed at the last minute due to some emergency? Looking back now, maybe I went completely overboard with the planning, but that's just how I show people I care about them. I pay attention to details that matter to them. I remember the things they say, and I plan ahead so nothing can go wrong and ruin their special moments. Early December was when the wheels started coming completely off our relationship, though I was too invested in making everything perfect to see the warning signs clearly. The first major red flag came when I showed Nicole the china pieces I had managed to track down for her mom. I was genuinely excited about finding these impossible-to-locate pieces after weeks of searching, and I laid them out on my kitchen table like some kind of treasure hunter showing off his most prized discoveries. Nicole barely glanced up from her phone when I revealed them. She just said, "Oh yeah, that's nice," in this completely disinterested tone, like I had just shown her a grocery receipt instead of something I had spent weeks hunting down across multiple counties. The lack of enthusiasm was jarring, especially considering how much effort I had put into finding exactly what her mother had mentioned wanting. "Your mom's going to lose her mind when she sees these," I said, trying to get some kind of reaction or engagement from her about the gift. She responded, still scrolling through Instagram without really looking at what I was showing her. I brushed off her indifference at first, telling myself she was just having an off day. She kept saying that work was stressing her out with parent-teacher conferences and holiday programs that the school was putting on. The work stress seemed completely legitimate at first. Teaching elementary school during December is basically like herding cats while they're all hopped up on candy canes in Christmas excitement. She would come over to my place after work, looking completely drained and exhausted, complaining endlessly about helicopter parents and impossible deadlines for the various holiday performances the kids had to put on. I would make her dinner and let her vent about all the administrative bullshit while she graded papers at my kitchen table. I figured the constant phone obsession was just her way of decompressing after dealing with demanding parents and hyperactive children all day long. Then she started mentioning Blake more and more frequently. At first, it seemed completely innocent. Just an old college friend who had moved back to town for some startup job opportunity. The initial mentions were casual things like, "Oh, Blake thinks I should travel more," or "Blake says this town is too small for creative people like us." Whatever, I thought. People reconnect with old friends all the time, and it's normal to get advice from people who knew you in a different phase of your life. But then, Blake became a central topic in literally every conversation we had. It was Blake this, Blake that constantly. Blake thinks I should take more risks with my art. Blake says small towns are dream killers for people with real ambition. Blake has all these amazing stories from living in Atlanta and experiencing big city life. The dude apparently worked for some pretentious artisanal coffee company that sold overpriced blends to hipster cafes. The kind of guy who probably had very strong opinions about pour-over techniques and owned more flannel shirts than an actual lumberjack. Nicole kept going on and on about his creative energy and how he had traveled to something like 8 different countries before turning 30. She started making passive-aggressive comments about how she had never been anywhere outside North Carolina, and how she felt like she was missing out on life experiences. I'm not usually the jealous type at all, but something about the whole situation felt completely off and wrong. She would be constantly glued to her phone during dinner, giving me these incredibly vague answers whenever I asked about her day or tried to engage her in meaningful conversation. She started saying she was hanging out with friends instead of being specific about who she was with or where they were going, which was a complete departure from how communicative she had always been before. The shift in her behavior was becoming impossible to ignore. When I tried to confirm our Christmas dinner reservations on December 16th, she hit me with this curveball. Maybe we should keep things flexible this year. I asked her what she meant by flexible, and she said, "Just not so structured, you know? More spontaneous and natural." Red flags were going up everywhere in my mind, but I was still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I figured she was probably just feeling stressed about the holidays and all the pressure that comes with family gatherings and gift-giving expectations. Looking back now, I realize I was being completely naive. But at the time, I thought maybe she just needed some space to work through whatever was bothering her. Boy, was I ever wrong about that. December 23rd was when the atomic bomb finally dropped. It was exactly 3 days before Christmas, and I was sitting in my living room doing the final gift wrapping for everyone. I had everything organized by family member like some kind of Christmas logistics coordinator. Her parents' gifts in one carefully arranged pile, my family's presents in another neat stack, and hers positioned front and center where I could admire the wrapping job I had done. That's when Nicole walked into my house with this look on her face that I recognized immediately. It was the universal, "we need to talk" expression that means someone is about to completely destroy your world and turn your life upside down. Tyler, we need to talk, she said, confirming my worst fears. I was thinking maybe she wanted to adjust our schedule slightly or switch around the timing of the gift exchange. Maybe she wanted to leave an hour earlier than planned, or perhaps there had been some change in her family's dinner plans. I was not even remotely prepared for what came next. She sat down on my couch and dropped this bombshell that I will never forget as long as I live. I'm bringing Blake to Christmas dinner instead of you. I literally stopped mid-rap. The ribbon fell out of my hands like something out of a cheesy romantic comedy, except this was the opposite of romantic. I had to ask her to repeat what she had just said, because my brain couldn't process the words that had just come out of her mouth. What did you just say? I asked, hoping I had somehow misheard her. I know this is terrible timing, but Blake and I have been talking a lot lately, she said, taking this shaky breath like she was preparing to deliver a rehearsed speech. God, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a complete awful person. Well, you're off to a great start, so why don't you try anyway? I replied, setting down the gift I had been wrapping. Ironically, it was hers. Things between us have felt so structured lately, she continued, her voice taking on this defensive tone. Like we're following some predetermined blueprint for our relationship instead of just living and experiencing life naturally. With Blake, everything feels more natural, more alive, more spontaneous. I set down the gift I was wrapping completely, needing to focus entirely on what she was telling me. 3 days before Christmas, Nicole? After I've been planning this for months and have everything arranged? I know it's incredibly cruel timing, she said, her voice starting to crack like she was the victim in this situation. I've been trying to find the right moment to tell you about this, but there never seemed to be a good time to have this conversation. You put so much thought into absolutely everything, she went on, seemingly gathering momentum for what felt like a prepared speech. The gifts, the reservations, the way you remember every little thing my family says in passing conversation. It should make me feel loved and cherished, but instead it makes me feel trapped and suffocated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Trapped by someone caring about you and wanting to make you happy? This was insane. Trapped by someone planning out every single moment of our future before I've even decided what I want my life to look like, she continued, tears starting to form in her eyes, but pushing through like she was delivering some kind of manifesto she had rehearsed. Blake doesn't do any of that controlling stuff. He lives in the moment and makes me feel like I can actually breathe and be myself. That's when she dropped the real nuclear bomb that completely destroyed me. And honestly, I saw the ring box in your drawer last week when I was looking for something. I know exactly what you're planning for Christmas dinner. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. You went through my personal stuff? I was looking for a phone charger and I saw it sitting there, she said defensively. Tyler, I'm only 24 years old. I'm way too young to get engaged and settle down like that. Can you imagine how incredibly awkward it would have been if I had to reject your proposal in front of both our families at dinner? I'm actually doing you a huge favor here by ending this now. I just stared at her in complete disbelief. A favor? Yes, can you imagine how absolutely humiliating that would have been for both of us? This way, we can both save face, and nobody has to watch a proposal get shot down in front of the turkey and stuffing. Right? Very thoughtful of you, I said, not even trying to hide the sarcasm in my voice. She was full-on crying now, but continuing her justification. You're being sarcastic, but I'm genuinely trying to spare your feelings here. Blake doesn't pressure me about the future or try to lock me down. He just wants to enjoy what we have right now in this moment. And what about all the gifts I bought, the reservations I made, your family expecting me to be there? I'll handle my family, they'll understand eventually, she said dismissively. And honestly, maybe this is for the best anyway. We clearly want completely different things, Tyler. I need someone who doesn't have our entire life mapped out on a spreadsheet before we've even figured out if we're compatible long term. Here's the thing that really gets me looking back on this whole situation. I could have fought for her in that moment. I could have pointed out that she had seemed pretty damn happy about all my planning and attention to detail until Captain Spontaneous showed up and filled her head with nonsense. I could have begged her to wait until after Christmas to make such a drastic decision, or asked her why she was sabotaging everything we had built together over the past year and a half. But honestly, something inside me just snapped in that moment. It was like when you're in a work meeting and someone presents the most ridiculous, poorly thought out idea you've ever heard, but you're professional enough not to tell them they're a complete idiot to their face. I stood up from the couch, gathered all the carefully chosen gifts I had bought for her family into a neat pile, and set them on the coffee table in front of her. Give these to your parents, I said calmly. They deserve to have Christmas gifts, even if I won't be there to watch them open them and see their reactions. She looked at me like I was some kind of emotionless robot, clearly not getting the reaction she had expected or prepared for. Tyler, you're making this way harder than it needs to be. No, I'm making it exactly as hard as it needs to be, I replied without missing a beat. I went to my bedroom and retrieved her overnight bag from my closet, the one with her spare clothes and toiletries that she kept at my place for convenience. I handed it to her and then opened the front door, holding it open in a gesture that made my intentions crystal clear. Can we try to stay friends after this? She asked while clutching her bag, looking genuinely confused by how smoothly I was handling the situation. I just looked at her for a long moment before responding. You made your choice, Nicole. I'm not going to argue about it or try to help you feel better about screwing me over 3 days before Christmas. The crying intensified at that point. But it wasn't the I made a terrible mistake kind of crying. It was the frustrated, this isn't going according to my script kind of crying that told me everything I needed to know about her real motivations. After she left, I sat there staring at the wall for about 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened to my life. Then, my brain finally kicked back into gear, and I called my best friend Connor with just 4 simple words. I need to get out of here. Dude, what happened? Connor asked immediately, clearly picking up on the tone in my voice. You sound like someone just told you they're making another Matrix sequel. Nicole dumped me 3 days before Christmas for Blake, I said, still hardly believing the words coming out of my own mouth. There was dead silence on the other end of the line for several seconds. Then Connor exploded. The college douchebag with the man bun who works at that pretentious coffee startup? Are you absolutely kidding me right now? 20 minutes later, I was standing at Connor's apartment with an overnight bag, and he had his gaming setup ready along with a cooler full of Mountain Dew. The guy had transformed his living room into some kind of breakup war room operation, complete with snacks and entertainment designed to keep my mind off the disaster my life had just become. Christmas at Connor's place turned out to be way better than I had expected under the circumstances. So let me get this straight, Connor said, while booting up Call of Duty and getting our gaming session ready. Princess Spontaneous couldn't handle dating an actual adult who had his shit together, so she traded you for Walmart Ryan Gosling? She said I was too structured and that I planned everything out too much, I explained, still trying to make sense of her reasoning. Yeah, God forbid someone actually remembers her birthday and doesn't live in his mom's basement eating Hot Pockets for every meal, Connor replied, with his trademark sarcasm. He handed me a controller and continued his rant. Did you tell her about the ring you bought? She found it in my drawer when she was snooping around looking for a phone charger, I said. She told me she was doing me a favor by dumping me before I could propose and get rejected in front of both families. Connor paused the game and just stared at me with this incredulous expression. Wait, what the hell? Are you serious right now? Those were her exact words. Bro, I've heard some delusional shit in my time, but that's Hall of Fame level crazy, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. He unpaused the game and immediately got sniped by some 12-year-old with way too much time on his hands. You know what this means, right? You just dodged a bullet the size of the Death Star. Imagine if you had actually married someone who thinks caring about her is a character flaw. Connor's place was basically a bachelor pad museum that perfectly reflected his priorities. He had a massive 80-inch TV mounted on the wall, gaming chairs that looked like they belonged in actual race cars, and enough gaming consoles to stock a Best Buy electronics section. His kitchen consisted of a microwave, mini fridge, and coffee maker, because why overcomplicate things when you can keep life simple? The dude had his priorities completely straight and zero shame about living like a grown-up kid who happened to pay his own bills. We spent Christmas Eve gaming and eating pizza rolls while trash-talking random kids online who thought they were hot shit. Every time I started getting in my head about the whole situation or feeling sorry for myself, Connor would drop some absolutely ridiculous comment about Nicole or make some joke that would crack me up despite everything that had happened. You know what's going to be absolutely hilarious? He said around 2:00 a.m. while we were getting completely destroyed in some battle royale game. She's gonna spend Christmas Day explaining to her entire family why you got replaced by a guy whose biggest accomplishment is probably running a Juice Cleanse Instagram account. That comment actually made me laugh out loud for the first time since the breakup. Her dad's going to absolutely hate him. Dude, Frank's going to eat that pretentious hipster alive, Connor predicted with obvious glee. I give it about 2 hours before he starts asking Blake about his 5-year plan, just to watch him squirm and realize he doesn't have any real answers. Christmas morning, I woke up early anyway, out of pure habit from years of family traditions. I made coffee using Connor's basic setup and went for a long walk around his neighborhood, trying to clear my head and process everything that had happened. When I got back, I called my parents to let them know what was going on. They weren't even surprised about the breakup, which was both comforting and a little irritating at the same time. Apparently, they had harbored some serious reservations about Nicole all along, but didn't want to say anything while I seemed happy with the relationship. She always seemed like she was looking for something else, my mom said during our phone conversation. Like you were just a placeholder until something more exciting came along. Thanks for the heads up, Mom, I replied, though I appreciated her honesty even if it stung a little. My phone started absolutely blowing up around noon on Christmas Day, and it wasn't with holiday greetings. First, it was Nicole texting me. My mom keeps asking where you are, and I don't know what to tell her. Then another message. Blake is trying his best, but he doesn't understand our family traditions at all. By evening, the messages were getting more desperate. The tea set you got my mom made her cry happy tears. She said it was the most thoughtful gift she'd ever received from anyone. Her parents started texting me directly around dinner time, which really hit me in the gut. Frank sent, Tyler, Linda and I are absolutely furious with Nicole for what she did to you. You didn't deserve this garbage treatment. The gifts you got us are incredible and show how much you care. We're heartbroken you're not here with us. You'll always be family to us. Linda sent me a whole paragraph that was even more emotional. Sweetheart, I don't understand what got into our daughter's head. You're family to us and always will be, no matter what happens. This Blake boy is rude and arrogant, and we told Nicole exactly how we feel about this whole situation. We love you and we're so sorry this happened. They even sent me pictures of Linda using the China tea set I had tracked down, and Frank reading his firefighting history book. They were clearly trying to show Nicole what she had thrown away. And honestly, it was both touching and heartbreaking at the same time. Frank's follow-up text included a photo of him giving Blake the stink eye across the dinner table, while the dude was apparently trying to explain why he didn't eat meat. Apparently, Captain Spontaneous was also Captain Vegan, which went over about as well as you'd expect with a retired firefighter who considered any meal incomplete without at least 2 different kinds of protein. The final text of the night was from Nicole again. I think I might have made a mistake. Can we please talk after the holidays? I read every single message that came through my phone that day. I started typing responses to all of them, crafting carefully worded replies that expressed my feelings. Then I deleted everything without sending any of it. She had made her choice, and I wasn't about to help her feel better about it, or give her the satisfaction of knowing how much this was affecting me. 2 weeks later, she called me around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Her voice was all raw and desperate, like she had been crying for hours before finally working up the courage to dial my number. Tyler, I need to talk to you, she said, barely holding it together. Blake left. Okay, that's it, I responded flatly. Just okay? What do you want me to say, Nicole? He said he was just having fun over the holidays and didn't want anything serious long term, she continued, her voice cracking with emotion. He's going back to Atlanta to his real life. I threw away everything we had for someone who was just messing around, she sobbed. This is shocking absolutely no one except you. Please don't be cruel, she begged. I'm falling apart here and you're just being so cold about everything. What did you expect? I asked her point blank. You chose the guy who lives in the moment over the guy who planned ahead for our future. Turns out living in the moment means he wasn't planning to stick around for anything permanent. Apparently, Blake had been pretty upfront about his intentions from the very beginning, if she had bothered to actually listen to what he was telling her. The dude was only in town for exactly 7 weeks to help launch some pop-up coffee concept for his company. Then he was heading back to his real life in Atlanta, where his actual job and social circle were. He never had any intention of staying in North Carolina or building anything permanent with anyone. She kept calling me for weeks after that initial conversation, leaving increasingly desperate and pathetic voicemails that showed just how badly she had miscalculated everything. Her friends started hitting me up too, like they were running some kind of intervention squad to get us back together. First, it was Jessica calling. Nicole's really struggling right now, and she misses you so much. She knows she made a huge mistake and she's learned from it. Can't you just give her another chance? Then Madison reached out. She's been crying every single day since New Year's. Can't you just talk to her? She really needs closure from this situation. You're being so cruel and unreasonable by ignoring her. Meanwhile, Connor was sending me screenshots of Nicole's Instagram posts with his own commentary that had me cracking up. Damn, someone discovered the deep quote section on Pinterest, he texted, along with a screenshot of her posting some generic sad quote about lost love. And is this the same chick who said you were suffocating her? Because she's looking pretty suffocated by her own drama right now. Her social media became this absolute cringe fest of sad quotes about realizing what you had when it's gone, along with carefully staged pictures of herself looking all contemplative and lonely in various coffee shops around town. It was classic attention-seeking behavior that had Connor and me absolutely dying with laughter. The best part was when Connor actually commented on one of her feeling lost and alone in this big world posts with maybe try a GPS and a dating app. I nearly choked on my drink when I saw that burn show up in my notifications. By March, the calls finally stopped coming completely. I heard through mutual friends that she had moved back in with her parents and started going to therapy to work through her issues. Honestly, good for her. I genuinely hope she figured out whatever was broken inside her that made her think blowing up her life was a reasonable solution to whatever problem she was imagining. Meanwhile, I threw myself into actually living my life instead of just planning to live it someday. I started taking photography classes on weekends, which led to solo trips around North Carolina, where I would hit up state parks and small towns that I had never bothered to explore before. I also started hitting the gym more often and with more intensity than I had in years. The photography classes were held at this community college downtown, taught by this old-school photographer who had worked for newspapers back when that was still a real job that could support a family. I learned to shoot in manual mode using my grandfather's ancient Nikon camera that had been collecting dust in my closet for years. I started documenting the Mustang restoration process, which turned into this whole portfolio about American muscle cars and working-class pride. I even had a few prints selected for a local art show, which felt like a real accomplishment. Work was going great too. My coordination skills, which Nicole had found suffocating and controlling, were actually getting me promoted at the company. Turns out being organized and thinking ahead were valuable traits in the real world, not character flaws that needed to be fixed. The promotion came with a nice bump in salary and my own office with actual windows that looked out over the city. I started leading bigger projects, coordinating subcontractors for commercial developments, and managing timelines for entire shopping centers. But the real win was that I finally pulled the trigger on something I had been wanting to do for years. I bought a 2019 Harley Sportster that was a bit beat up, but had good bones underneath all the surface issues. I spent my weekends in Connor's garage, tearing that bike down and rebuilding it piece by piece according to my own vision. You know what they call a motorcycle that won't start? Connor asked one Saturday while I was rebuilding the carburetor with meticulous attention to detail. A really expensive paperweight with trust issues. Kind of like my dating life, but louder. Connor and his terrible jokes aside, there's something genuinely therapeutic about working with your hands and creating something beautiful from something broken. Plus, every time I fired up that engine after a successful repair, I felt like I was reclaiming something that Nicole had tried to take from me. The confidence to be myself without apologizing for it. I started hanging out with the boys way more often too. We would hit up this sports bar downtown to play pool and watch March Madness, just enjoying each other's company without overanalyzing every conversation. It felt good to be around people who didn't overthink everything or constantly analyze my personality for character flaws that needed to be corrected. That's when I met Maya through this hiking group I had joined on a whim. She was the complete opposite of Nicole in every way that actually mattered for a healthy relationship. Where Nicole was impulsive and flighty, constantly changing her mind about what she wanted, Maya was thoughtful and grounded in her decisions. Where Nicole was always looking for the next adventure or something more exciting than what she had, Maya appreciated the value of building something solid and lasting. Most importantly, she actually liked the things about me that Nicole had found overwhelming and suffocating. "I love how you remember things that matter to people," she told me when we were planning our third date together. "It makes me feel like I actually matter to you and that you're paying attention to who I am as a person." Maya is the kind of person who chose her career based on actually helping people in meaningful ways, instead of chasing some abstract creative fulfillment that might never lead to anything concrete. She had grown up on a farm outside Raleigh, so she knew how to fix things when they broke down, understood the value of hard work and planning ahead, and appreciated practical skills. The girl could back up a truck like a professional driver, change a tire without breaking a sweat, and cook a meal from scratch that didn't come from a box or require a microwave. Plus, she thought the Harley restoration project was absolutely badass and wanted to learn how to ride it herself. Our first Christmas together, she was genuinely excited about doing everything right and making it special. "I want to meet your family, and I want you to meet mine," she said, while we were picking out a Christmas tree together. "My family does everything at the last minute and kind of wings it. and I've always wanted to experience what it's like when someone actually plans ahead and makes things special. Are you sure about that? I asked, still a little gun-shy about my planning tendencies. I tend to go completely overboard with holiday planning. She laughed and kissed me right there in the Christmas tree lot. Promise me you will go overboard. I want the full Tyler Christmas experience. We were at Target buying decorations and having a great time when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message read, "Hey, it's Nicole. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to reach out. I'm doing much better now and I was hoping we could talk. Maybe grab coffee and catch up?" I showed Maya the message without hesitation, and she read it carefully before asking, "Do you want to respond to her?" I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds before making my decision. Nope. I deleted the message and went back to debating between silver and gold garland for our tree. "Good choice," Maya said with a smile. "The gold will look better with your couch anyway." Then came the holiday party ambush that I definitely wasn't prepared for. Our mutual friend Kevin throws this big holiday party every year at his place, and it's usually a fun, low-key event. Maya and I showed up fashionably late, and I was feeling really good about life and where things were heading. Then I spotted her across the room, and my good mood took a hit. Nicole was standing by the punch bowl looking smaller and more fragile than I remembered, checking her phone every 30 seconds, like she was waiting for an Uber to rescue her from the situation. Maya spotted her immediately and put 2 and 2 together. "Is that her?" she asked quietly. "Yep, and she looks about as lost as I expected," I replied. I was talking to Kevin about his new job and trying to enjoy the party when I felt someone approach from behind. I turned around, and there was Nicole with this forced smile plastered on her face, holding her drink like it was some kind of protective shield. "Tyler, I didn't know you'd be here tonight," she said, her voice artificially cheerful. "You look really good, really healthy." I put my arm around Maya's waist in a clear gesture of solidarity and commitment. "Hey, Nicole, this is Maya, my girlfriend." Maya immediately extended her hand with a genuine warm smile that showed her confidence in class. "Maya," she said simply, "I know Tyler mentioned you two had history together. It's nice to meet you." I watched Nicole completely ignore Maya's outstretched hand and look her up and down with obvious judgment and hostility. "Right, Maya," she said, pronouncing the name like she was tasting something bitter and unpleasant. "I've been thinking about us lately," Nicole said, her voice getting tight and strained while she continued to pretend Maya didn't exist. "About what we had together, all those plans we made for our future." "That was a long time ago, Nicole," I replied firmly. "I've moved on with my life." "But don't you miss it?" she pressed, looking directly at me and completely cutting Maya out of the conversation like she was invisible. "The way we used to be together? The way you used to plan everything for us?" Maya jumped in, clearly proud of our relationship and not intimidated by Nicole's obvious hostility. "Oh, Tyler's been absolutely amazing. He's working with my mom to perfect her grandmother's prime rib recipe for Christmas dinner, and he found the most incredible gifts for my nieces and nephews. I honestly don't know how he keeps track of what they all love, but it's one of the things I adore about him." Nicole's face went through about 5 different emotions in rapid succession: surprise, anger, jealousy, rage, before settling on pure, undisguised venom. "How nice for you," she said to Maya, with this sickeningly fake sweet voice. "It's so easy to appreciate someone when you haven't had to deal with their obsessive need to control everything yet. Give it time, sweetie." "Excuse me?" Maya said, stepping forward with steel in her voice. "Please," Nicole said, her composure completely cracking as she turned back to me with desperation written all over her face. "Can we just talk privately without her here?" "No," I interrupted before the situation could escalate further. "Have a good time, Nicole." "You can't be serious right now," she said, her voice getting louder and more desperate as heads started to turn in our direction. "You're really going to choose her over what we had together?" "I already did that 14 months ago when you made the choice for me," I replied calmly. "But I know now that I made a mistake," she said, her voice rising to near-shouting levels. "I was young and scared and stupid back then. You can't just replace me with some random girl," she continued, completely losing control of herself. As Maya and I started walking toward the exit, deciding we'd had enough drama for one evening, I turned back one last time to deliver the final blow. "Next time you find someone who plans Christmas around you, maybe don't wait until 3 days before to tell them they're uninvited to their own proposal." That's when Nicole completely lost whatever remaining composure she had left. "Are you serious right now?" she screamed across the entire party, loud enough to stop every single conversation in the room. "You're just going to walk away after everything we had together?" The whole party went completely dead silent, with everyone staring at the unfolding drama. Maya was squeezing my hand supportively, and we kept walking toward the door, but Nicole wasn't done making a scene that everyone would remember. "She doesn't even know you like I do," Nicole continued shouting at the top of her lungs. "She's just some rebound who'll never understand what we had together." Her friends Jessica and Madison came rushing over from across the room, clearly mortified by the spectacle their friend was creating. They were trying to grab her arms and physically drag her toward the exit before she could embarrass herself further. "Nicole, stop it! You're making a scene!" Jessica hissed under her breath, but Nicole was beyond caring about social conventions at this point. "I don't care if I'm making a scene," Nicole declared for everyone to hear. "He's making a huge mistake, and everyone here knows it." As Jessica and Madison were literally dragging her toward the exit like bouncers removing a drunk patron, Madison shot us this dirty look over her shoulder and said loud enough for half the party to hear, "Wow, real classy, Tyler. Bringing this random girl just to hurt Nicole. You actually downgraded in case no one told you." Maya squeezed my hand as we walked to my truck in the parking lot, completely unfazed by the drama that had just unfolded. Well, that was more dramatic than I expected it to be. "For me or for her?" I asked, genuinely curious about Maya's take on the situation. "Definitely for her," Maya replied with a laugh. "She looked like she was watching her entire future walk away from her." "Maybe she was, but that's not my problem anymore," I said, feeling a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The rest of the party was actually great once the drama cleared out, and people went back to having normal conversations. We made plans for New Year's Eve, talked about potential vacation destinations for the coming year, and just enjoyed being with someone who actually wanted to be there with me. Fast forward to summer, and life was honestly better than I could have imagined possible during those dark days right after Christmas. The Harley restoration was finally complete, and Connor and I had turned that beaten-up Sportster into something that belonged in a motorcycle magazine. Every Saturday, we would cruise around North Carolina, hitting up small towns and dive bars, just enjoying the freedom and the open road. "You know what's funny?" Connor said one weekend as we were grabbing lunch in some town whose name I couldn't even pronounce. "A year ago, you were planning Christmas dinner with Crazy Nicole, and now you're out here living like a Bruce Springsteen song. That's some serious character development, bro." Maya had moved into my place around April, and the transition was absolutely seamless in ways I hadn't expected. The girl could cook like she had gone to culinary school, genuinely wanted to hit the gym with me instead of making excuses. And here's the part that really blew my mind. She never complained when I would disappear to work on the bike or hang out with the boys for an entire afternoon. She would just smile and say, "Have fun, babe," then post some cute story about loving to watch me in my element and pursuing my passions. Her Instagram was basically a shrine to our relationship, but in a good way that felt genuine rather than performative. She posted pictures of us hiking together, photos of me working on the Harley with grease on my hands, and candid shots of us cooking together on weekends. She would caption them with stuff like, "Watching this man follow his passions makes me fall in love all over again." And her friends would comment about how lucky she was to find someone who actually had his life together and treated her well. That's when things started getting weird again, but not because of anything Maya or I were doing wrong. It turns out Nicole had been stalking our social media from fake accounts for months, watching our relationship develop, and apparently becoming increasingly obsessed with what she had thrown away. Maya started getting strange messages from random profiles with no photos. Nothing directly threatening, just passive-aggressive stuff like, "Enjoy it while it lasts." And some people just steal other people's happiness instead of finding their own. The fake accounts were amateur hour and obviously created just to spy on us and cause trouble. One account messaged Maya pretending to be a concerned friend, suggesting she should ask Tyler about what really happened with his ex and warning her about my supposed history with commitment issues. Maya screenshotted everything and showed me the messages, laughing about how pathetic the whole thing was and how transparent Nicole's attempts at manipulation were. Then, Nicole escalated to real-world crazy behavior that was genuinely concerning. She started showing up at my workplace, just standing in the parking lot, staring at the building like some kind of rejected romantic comedy protagonist who thought persistence would eventually pay off. Security had to escort her off company property twice, and she even called my coworkers asking them to talk sense into me about making a huge mistake with my life choices. Our office building has security cameras everywhere for liability reasons, so we actually had footage of her sitting in her car for hours at a time, just watching the entrance like she was conducting surveillance on a criminal target. Building security started recognizing her vehicle, and would call me whenever she showed up in the parking lot. My boss eventually asked if I needed time off to deal with a personal situation, which was embarrassing as hell. Here I was trying to maintain a professional reputation and advance my career, while my crazy ex was turning my workplace into her personal surveillance headquarters. She even tried calling Connor, which was a mistake of epic proportions. "Dude, your psycho ex called me last night," he told me while we were working on his car in the garage. "She wanted me to convince you that Maya's not right for you and that you're making a terrible decision that you'll regret forever." "What exactly did she say to you?" I asked, genuinely curious about how far down the rabbit hole she had gone. "Oh, the usual crazy stuff," Connor replied with obvious amusement. "That Maya doesn't really know the real you, that you're just rebounding and using her to get over Nicole, and that you'll realize your mistake when the honeymoon phase ends." He grinned and continued. "So I told her that at least Maya doesn't need a restraining order to understand basic boundaries. The final straw came when Nicole started harassing Maya online, using those fake Instagram accounts to leave hostile comments on our engagement photos. She was calling Maya a placeholder and a rebound, suggesting that our relationship wouldn't last, and that I would eventually come to my senses. Her flying monkeys Jessica and Madison joined in on the harassment campaign, commenting on our pictures with crying emojis and "this won't last" messages like a bunch of middle schoolers who had never learned how to handle rejection properly. Then Nicole started leaving gifts on my front porch, which was both pathetic and genuinely unsettling. It was white roses with handwritten notes like, "remembering what we had together," and "some love never dies, no matter how hard you try to kill it." Maya was getting genuinely freaked out by the escalating behavior, and honestly, so was I. This had moved way beyond normal post-breakup drama into actual stalking territory. It was time to lawyer up and get some legal protection. I got a restraining order that basically told Nicole to stay 500 feet away from me, Maya, my house, my job, and anywhere we might reasonably be expected to exist. I thought that would finally be the end of this nightmare situation and we could move on with our lives in peace. I was completely wrong about that. One Friday night in late February 2024, we were all at my place having an epic Mario Kart tournament. Me, Maya, and Connor were having a great time, and Maya was absolutely destroying both of us while talking trash like she had been born for competitive gaming. The atmosphere was relaxed and fun, exactly the kind of evening I had learned to appreciate. That's when we heard the aggressive pounding on my front door that immediately killed the mood. "Tyler, I know you're in there," came Nicole's voice, clearly drunk as hell from the sound of it. "Maya is not better than me, and you're making the biggest mistake of your life." I was reaching for my phone to call the police when Connor grabbed my intercom system with a mischievous grin. "Hold up, let me handle this situation," he said. "I've been waiting for this moment for months." He keyed the intercom and said, "Yo, Nicole, it's Connor. Remember me? Your ex's best friend who warned him about you from day one? Connor, get Tyler out here right now," she demanded through the speaker. "Nah, Tyler's busy being happy and living his best life," Connor replied, clearly enjoying himself. "But hey, thanks for proving my point about you being completely unhinged and unable to move on like a normal person. I'm not leaving until he talks to me and hears what I have to say." "Cool, well, the cops should be here in about 5 minutes," Connor informed her casually. "So you might want to work on your cardio, unless orange jumpsuits are your thing, and you're looking forward to a fashion change." Maya was filming the whole exchange on her phone, partly for evidence in case we needed it later, and partly because Connor's roasting session was absolutely legendary and deserved to be preserved for posterity. "Oh, and Nicole," Connor continued, clearly having the time of his life. "Next time you want to drunk dial someone at midnight, maybe try ordering pizza instead. At least then someone would actually want to deliver to your address." By the time the police showed up to handle the situation, Nicole was sitting on my porch steps, sobbing uncontrollably and rambling incoherently about how she just wanted to talk and explain everything that had happened. She kept insisting that if I would just give her 5 minutes to explain herself, I would understand and forgive her for everything. The officers arrested her for violating the restraining order, public intoxication, and disturbing the peace in what was probably the most embarrassing moment of her entire life. As they were loading her into the back of the police cruiser, she was screaming at the top of her lungs about how Maya had stolen her life, and how I used to be different before I met that woman. The neighbors were all outside on their porches, watching this train wreck unfold like it was some kind of dinner theater performance. And I felt genuinely bad for them, having to witness such a spectacle in our normally quiet neighborhood. Connor looked at us as the police car drove away with its flashing lights and said with perfect comedic timing, "Well, that was loud. Anyone want pizza? I never heard from Nicole again after that night, which was honestly the best possible outcome for everyone involved. I heard through the grapevine that she had moved to Denver and started fresh somewhere else where nobody knew about her dramatic meltdown. I genuinely hope she figured out whatever was broken inside her that made her think destroying someone else's happiness would somehow fix her own problems and make her feel better about her life choices. Maya and I are getting married this coming summer, and I couldn't be more excited about our future together. I already proposed with the same ring I had originally bought for Nicole, but this time it's going to someone who actually deserves it and appreciates what it represents. Connor is going to be my best man, and his speech will probably include a 5-minute roast of my questionable taste in ex-girlfriends that will have the entire wedding party cracking up and reminiscing about this whole crazy story. My restored Harley is going to be our getaway vehicle after the reception, and the image of Maya in her wedding dress riding behind me on a motorcycle will probably be the coolest moment of my entire existence. We've already planned out the route and made sure she's comfortable on the bike, because safety comes first, even during romantic gestures. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living well and finding someone who appreciates the same things about you that your ex found suffocating and problematic. Maya loves my planning and attention to detail, while Nicole saw those same qualities as character flaws that needed to be fixed or eliminated entirely. The moral of this entire story is simple, and I hope other people can learn from my experience. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time instead of making excuses for their behavior. Don't waste months trying to fix someone who thinks your best qualities are character flaws that need to be changed. And never let anyone make you feel bad for having your shit together and being a responsible adult. Also, always trust your boys when they try to warn you about someone. Connor saw through Nicole's bullshit from day one, while I was too infatuated to notice all the red flags that were clearly visible to everyone else around us. Your real friends will tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it, and they'll have your back when everything falls apart. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a wedding to plan, and this time, I'm doing it for someone who actually wants to marry me instead of someone who thinks proposals are a personal attack on their independence. It feels good, man.